Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me are my co-hosts, Sheikh Amer and Mort.
Assalamu alaikum.
Friends, we have a wonderful show for you guys this afternoon, but before we get started, help us out on patreon.com/themedmamluks. You can also help us out through the website, themadmamluks.com/donate. Mort, you alright there, bud?
Yeah, I'm just looking at you and you're like pausing like...
I paused because I thought you were looking at me.
Yeah, I was looking at you. we were live. I'm supposed to look at you.
You made an awkward face.
No,
but anyways.
usually when I go like this or something.
Okay.
Cue. All right. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
Go ahead.
Our show today is about the Indian persecution and discrimination towards India's religious minority, which is comprised of 200 million Muslims, according to a lot of different statistics. But Sister Afreen Fatima has come on our show to talk to us about this issue that's happening. She is a student leader from Allahabad, UP. She's a she's a national secretary of the Fraternity movement. She's formerly been the president of the Women's College Students Union in Aligarh Muslim University. She is pursued linguistics at JNU. Welcome to the show, Sister Afreen.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
So, Sister, how can you explain to our listeners how and when this issue started happening? Many of us who are part of the diaspora from India, we don't necessarily understand. We think Muslims are 200 million in India, and it's impossible to experience large-scale discrimination and intimidation from far-right people in India. So can you help us understand that a little bit better about what's actually going on?
I believe the persecution and the discrimination that the Muslim community has been facing is it is an heir to the partition, and the Muslim community has been made to be to be the other, to be an enemy, to be like foreigners in this Hindu land. And ever since India became a nation state, ever since its inception, there has been this discrimination. It was not so outright initially, but it was there. There was systemic violence, discrimination of different forms present. But post 2014, since the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is the BJP, took power in the government, since then it has become way more outright, it has become way more pronounced, and it has become way more direct. And so earlier there was this film, there was this filter over the persecution of Muslims. And there are several reports and even government data that suggests a systemic discrimination against Muslims. But post Modi, post BJP, since 2014, it has become absolutely vicious for Muslims to even step out of their houses without taking a risk, a massive risk. And it is not it's an existential risk that the Muslim community is taking every single time that a Muslim man or a Muslim woman steps out of their house, because there's always a fear of getting lynched. There's a fear of being thrashed for no reason. There's a fear of being attacked by a mob.
Well, okay.
And,
can I just pause you there? Because many Muslims from here will look at it and say, I know Hindus that I work with. I know so many people who are practicing of that faith, and they don't feel any discrimination from them. Contrary, we have pretty good relations with our Hindu colleagues in our workplaces and things. So is there something that is not being revealed to us? Where are we? How is it so bad that you're fearing just walking out of your home, or even, you know, any other form of discrimination within society. How has it gotten that bad over there?
So I believe one has to understand what the BJP is. The Bharatiya Janata Party is the political wing of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which is the RSS. And the RSS is a Hindutva organization. It's a Hindu supremacist organization that takes its cues from the Nazi Party of Germany. It takes cues from the state of Israel and how they persecute Palestinians. And the Hindutva ideology basically believes that India is a Hindu Rashtra, which means it's primarily for Indic religions, and there is no place for Christians and Muslims in India. That is the Abrahamic faiths. And it is supremacist in the sense that it believes that Hindus are the people who can enjoy citizenship rights, and the rest of the population, the Muslims, the Christians, are second-class citizens. If they need to accept second-class citizenship if they want to live in this Hindu Rashtra. And the BJP is the political wing of this supremacist organization. So for a party which is anti-Muslim, which is anti-Christian, which believes in Hindu supremacy, which believes in one nation, one religion, one language, it means that there is a massive majority that supports this supremacy. And we're talking about Narendra Modi, the current Prime Minister of India is Narendra Modi, who presided over a pogrom in 2002 in Gujarat, a state in India, where more than 2,000 Muslims were butchered in broad daylight. Muslim women were stripped naked, they were burnt alive, they were raped, their pregnant Muslim women's bellies were cut open. And so this is what this man has done, and he has been elected the Prime Minister of this country. And so when we say that there is an existential risk that the Muslim community is facing, and there is a mass radicalization in the Hindu community, it does not mean that there are no Hindus who do not, who there is a feeble minority of Hindus who do probably believe that India can be a land where Muslims and Christians can live equally. But at the same time, there is no effort on part of the Hindu majority to reclaim its Hindu identity and say that this, all that you're doing in the name of Hindu religion is wrong, and this is not what we believe in. There's this, so Jai Shri Ram, it's a Hindu religious slogan which has turned into a war cry. It is, Muslims are forced to chant Jai Shri Ram, and if they refuse to do so, they're lynched in broad daylight.
And what does that mean? What does that mean when they say that? What does that slogan
Jai Shri Ram, it means, so Ram is a lord, is one of the Hindu deities, and so basically it means hail Lord Ram.
Oh, so it's kind of like their version of Allahu Akbar. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is used right before a Muslim man is lynched, when Babri was demolished, when it was illegally demolished. The Kar Sevaks, the members of the Hindutva organizations, were shouting Jai Shri Ram. Okay. In Gujarat, when Muslims were lynched, were butchered, were killed in broad daylight, Jai Shri Ram was chanted then. So every act of violence committed against the Muslim community is preceded by this slogan, and it is a religious slogan. So for the Hindu majority to not reclaim its slogan and to say, and to not have a problem with their slogan being used to kill Muslims, says a lot.
Yeah.
And
one, if I could just pause you there, because there's a double standard when there's terrorism that happens from Muslims. There's terrorists who say Allahu Akbar and then they kill innocent people. There's a widespread condemnation from the Muslim community, where the majority of Muslims will say, you know what, we separate ourselves. I know some people have differing thoughts about this, whether they should issue condemnations or not, because it's pretty obvious that our religion is against it. Do you think there is like a feeling among the Hindu majority that we don't need to condemn this, that this is not even part of us, or is there some kind of tacit green light, or so someone just kind of looking the other way from the Hindu majority? Do you think they kind of silently approve of this?
Absolutely, they are silently approving of this, and even if you're not condemning, I don't want you to come out and give statements and say that, oh, we condemn, don't use our religious slogan. You don't have to give statements and say it out loud, but there should be some action on the ground to de-radicalize the Hindu community, the Hindu majority, which is extremely radicalized at this point of time. I mean, there are dharma sansads, religious congregations that are being organized, and there are speeches where Hindu priests are openly saying that take up arms against Muslims, kill them, rape Muslim women. I don't even have words to describe the kind of things that are being said against the Muslim community. I don't have words to describe the kind of things that are happening to the Muslim community in India. And the biggest problem here is that the Hindu majority does not care. They're not silently, they're either silent about whatever is happening, or they're proactively participating in the violence. And it's not just about voting for BJP or having a government that is pro-Hindu supremacy. It's about what is happening on the ground. I mean, Narendra Modi does not call up a man in a small town or a small village in India and say that you have to lynch this guy. It is being done on the ground. I mean, the reality of what is happening in India entails only one thing, is that the majority approves of this persecution, the majority approves of this marginalization, the majority approves of this violence.
Now, if I can just ask something, is this primarily in the UP, like everything that you've mentioned with the lynching and the raping and the pillaging, is this, and you mentioned that when men and women are afraid to leave their homes, is this primarily in UP because there's a lot more what is understood is like more conservatism for the Hindutva and all that? So does this happen in South India too, or is this mainly a UP thing?
Absolutely. I mean, the recent hijab ban has happened in the state of Karnataka, which is in the south of India. And for that matter, the whole conspiracy and propaganda of love jihad was manufactured in South India. Lynching was manufactured in South India. So it's not, no part of India is free from anti-Muslim bigotry, anti-Muslim hate. And the scale of violence, the scale of discrimination, the scale of marginalization is so much so that, I mean, there is, it's not just the majority. I mean, the state also approves of this violence. There is no anti-hate crime law in India. This is the world's most populous democracy, and there is no hate crime law in India.
And that's a very important point. It's supposed to be the largest democracy in the world, right? And that, yeah, that's really crazy.
So I also have a follow-up. So I kind of dabble a little bit in some of the politics and just to try to read. But it is my understanding that they don't even define Hinduism as a religion. Like, it's just so loosely defined that even the courts decided that Hinduism is not even a religion. So how do they make is that part of the reason why they get away with this, saying that it's not religious violence, it's just because there's no religion of Hinduism, so they just get away with it? Is that part of the problem?
I believe so. Like, their Hinduism, as per the Hindutva ideology, is a way of life. And all people who are originals in India, who are Indic, all religions, in fact, that are Indic in nature, that were born in India, they also come in the Hindu fold. So Sikhism, which is a different religion, Jainism, which is a different religion, Buddhism, which is a different religion, they all also come in the Hindu fold of being an Indic religion. So the Hindutva ideology says that there's a supremacy of Indic religions over non-Indic religions.
Yeah, and
But at the same time, the Constitution of India takes these religions into one Hindu fold and defines what a Hindu is, which is followers of Hinduism, followers of Sikhism, followers of Buddhism, followers of Jainism. All are Hindus, and rest are not. And that is also very problematic for a secular democratic constitution to define who a Hindu is and who a Hindu is not. Uh, at the same time, the idea that, like, that we are foreigners, that Muslims are foreigners, that we came from a foreign land and we invaded and took over India and ruled over India, is also very, like, there's a massive propaganda that, like, how Muslims and Christians are foreigners in India, and that is why they don't belong in India.
Right. So another interesting thing is every time we hear, because I'll be honest, we have the Hindutva sympathizers are even present in America. Like we'll see when we're trying to open a masjid, they'll be issuing petitions like from all across the country, outside the country. We don't know who they are. All Patel is coming and putting all their names down, and we don't know who, they're always opposing this. You go to YouTube comments, like especially in our videos or anything about Islam, the number one like commentary who against Muslims is by some random, Hindu dude, right? We don't even know who he is, but he's commenting. My point that I'm saying is that whenever we discuss with them, like I've talked to them on Clubhouse, and they always go back to the issue of, number one, what you're saying, that Muslims are invaders, and number two, they always say, well, this is payback for the Mughal Empire. Like, meaning that they always cite the Mughal, how they pillage and rape and all this stuff, and obviously we know that they're exaggerating history, but this is what they always say. So is that a common theme in India, that Mughals were people that destroyed the like Indian society? And like I mean the way we look at it is that Mughals kind of brought biryani and good language and architecture, that's how we look at it, right? I mean, so how is that on the ground there?
It is a massive propaganda against the Mughals, and so I mean, like, there is an active wing of the RSS that is all the time misinterpreting history, exaggerating history, and in fact, like, they have even changed the coursework in schools. And try to rewrite history to suit their agenda, to suit their propagandas. And I mean, there's a lot of research work on this. So this is a widely prevalent idea that Mughals invaded and killed and butchered, and they tore down temples, and so they have to tore down mosques and reclaim their temples. This is a massive propaganda that is prevalent, that is widely accepted, and sadly enough, it's not challenged as much as it should be. And one more thing that is very prevalent with regards to Muslims is that even though we are a small minority, in terms of the population of India, we are a minority of some 17-18%, and but still we have agendas of reproducing too much to become a majority, and then to overtake India and bring Islamic State and make India an Islamic State. All these kind of fake narratives, fake propagandas are so much prevalent in the and these are it's not even there's just a section that believes in these kind of propagandas. It is widely circulated. It is supported by news media. It is supported by on social media, and the kind of propaganda machinery that the BJP and the RSS have successfully made is really disturbing and harrowing to know, because they have an entire IT cell that job is nothing but to manufacture fake propaganda and feed it to the masses, and so as to create a consent for the marginalization, for the genocide of Muslims. I must say, I'm using the wrong word again and again.
Yeah. No, the fear mongering at its best, man. You know, that's what it is.
Sheikh, you used to live in India during your studies in northern India. Can you explain why this issue is so passionate, something that you feel so strongly about? I know this podcast was something that you were looking forward to for a while, and I know you have you've experienced what many of these feelings and situations are of discrimination during your stay there. So can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, and sorry, sister, I don't want to make this about myself, but this is just about the case of. So when I was there, it was about 2003 and 2004, so it was quite a while ago. But I was telling Sim before the podcast, I told him I understood kind of what the Palestinians felt and what they've always been saying, and we read about it all the time, but what they felt like and what they feel like in living, with the Israelis. Because I lived in North India, I lived in Lucknow, and it was very, very different than when I was in Hyderabad. Like my parents originally moved to Hyderabad before I was even born, and then I was born here in the States. But I ended up going back to Hyderabad. That was kind of like my base, and then I traveled to UP. So I went to Delhi. I went to a few different places, but I was also in Karnataka. I was in a place called Raichur. You probably heard of it. I was there for a while. I had relatives that lived there. So I went around to a few places, but one thing I realized is that there's always this surface type friendship that Muslims always had with Hindus, right? Because they have to, because they're neighbors. It's very surface, right? Because my observation was that when certain things happened, there was a major switch. If there was any type of unrest that would occur, friends would definitely turn against friends if there were, for instance, Hindus against the Muslims. I didn't really see that too much with Muslims. And what made me very, very sad was that Muslims always lived in this very subservient type lifestyle where they can, like in parts of Hyderabad, they can be a little more outspoken because they live around, especially during like the whole Ganesh thing. I was there, like there was a masjid that I was living close to.
What's that thing?
The Ganesh is basically where they build statues.
No, what's the Ganesh thing? Like something happened?
No, it's basically every year it happens. And I mean, she can probably elaborate more. I was too busy. I'll tell you what I was busy with, basically. So what happened was one of my friends, I was living with him in Hyderabad, and there was a Hindu temple very, very close to a masjid. And they were basically causing issues with the Muslim prayer timings because they're saying it's interrupting this whole situation. And my friend calls me and he goes, "Hey, come over here." He lived in Malakpet then. I don't know if you heard of Malakpet in Hyderabad. So I took a auto rickshaw there. I was maybe like half an hour away. I went there, and the interesting, half funny but half serious, this story, I get out of the auto rickshaw. The auto rickshaw guy drops me off dead in the middle, where one side where the Hindus are and one side where the Muslims are, and I don't know what's happening. So I'm like right in the middle. I get out and everyone's staring at me, and I'm looking at both sides and I'm like, what is going on here?
Stop, guys!
No, and my friend, he calls me, he goes, "Come over here." I was like, okay, I belong on that side, But then, but it was incidences like this that I would see repetitively, where one little thing would happen, then there's this sectarianism that automatically forms. And I started realizing that a lot of this stuff is just on the face value, but in my own experience and what happened in Ayodhya in Gujarat, that they used to say that in Ayodhya in Gujarat, they used to say we were neighbors, we used to grow up with each other, we used to play with each other, we used to go to each other's houses. But when Modi and his thugs came out and started burning cities and asking people where the Muslims are, their own neighbors would actually sell them out and say, "Oh, they're hiding over here, they're hiding over there," right? And that's a similar sentiment that I started feeling when I was there. I was only there for a little over a year, but I got a chance to travel around a lot and meet a lot of people, and I just got sick of this feeling of being like a second-class citizen. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you're a Muslim, right? And people will talk, and there's a few things people like comment. There was one place where I was in an area where I was traveling, and I was just in a bus just full of Hindus. I think I was probably the only Muslim there, possibly, because of the area I was going to. And they kind of recognized it, and I kind of understood like some of the snarky comments that they were saying. You know, some of it was
Like
in
what?
like Telugu, some of it was in like, but you know, they kept on like mentioning just out of nowhere like Osama bin Laden and stuff. Like, you know,
Really?
yeah. I had a topi on. I had my beard was a lot longer at that time, but
What, they would just say Bin
just,
Laden?
no,
Bin
no,
Laden
but they were
Kabeta?
acting like they were talking to each other. It had nothing to do with bin Laden, bro.
Oh.
You know,
I thought
there's
they just randomly call you Bin Laden Kabeta or something like that.
but I don't know what it was, you know. So those kind of things I used to hear a lot, you know. And like one time I was praying and I saw like some guy. He was just like probably knew that he wasn't supposed to walk in front of me, even though I had a sutra. But him and his friend were just kind of like walking in front, like laughing and stuff. You
So I
know?
have a question. Do they intentionally do like more louder like Hindu chants when the adhan goes off? Like, do they do that kind of stuff? Like let's say like they try to like. I'm not trying to like make a joke, but I'm saying like let's say the adhan's happening and they're doing some kind of Hindu chant. Will they then try to like amplify and like try to override like stuff? Is that
In my personal experience, and she can shed light on that. I went to visit my in-laws, my wife's grandparents, and they live close to like a Banjara Hills area, and every morning they used to play it, and there was like a really big Muslim neighborhood over there. They used to play what they call bhajan. It's like a loud,
Hymns.
yeah,
Okay.
really, really loud. And sometimes they would match it up with the Zohar Adhan, you know, like the same time. And sometimes they would match it up, even though it wasn't really their time, right, to do that. It's not the normal time that they do it. So those kind of things, yeah, I saw like here and there, you know, and like Muslims are kind of used to that kind of stuff. They understand it. And I'm not just saying this because I'm Muslim. I genuinely saw that Muslims generally didn't have an enmity. Like, they just want to be friends with people. That's my experience. They want to be friends with the Hindus. They get along very well with the Christians. I know a lot of Muslim people that went to Christian schools. I know Christian schools that went to predominantly Muslim. There, Muslims and Christians really don't have too much of an issue, especially after this whole Hindutva thing. They became more united, just like in Palestine, where you have the Muslims and the Christians that are a lot more united because they're both very much discriminated against.
Quran.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but sister, I have a question. So he mentioned something that, you know, at the surface level, that, you know, people that get along. And to be honest, we see that here also in America because we deal a lot. Like, I mean, I work in IT, and, you know, half of the call centers are in India. Yeah. So a lot of the people that work for me are Hindus, right? I can tell by their names, right? Yeah. So it's very surface level. Hi, how you doing, sir? You know, all this stuff. But it seems to me that, like he said, when there's communal violence, that these things change. So do you think the main trigger for these recent events have been Kashmir? And the reason why I asked that is because I also recently was told about a movie called The Kashmir Files, which paints a certain light. And so maybe you can talk about that and maybe tell us if Kashmir, this new resurfacing of the Kashmir issue and articles, you know, I forgot what it was called, but that whole drama that came with it, maybe you can talk about that a little bit and tell us if that was the cause of the catalyst.
So to answer the first part of what you've asked is that there is a change whenever there is a tension rising, absolutely. And in fact, there have been ample instances of, like, you know, when mass violence which is termed as a riot here, which is mostly a pogrom. What happens is that the Hindu neighbors, in fact, help the arsonists, the people who are actively committing violence, mark that this is a Muslim house. Oh no, don't burn that one. That's a Hindu house. In 2020, there was a pogrom that unleashed in the national capital, Delhi itself, and I went on a fact finding. I was part of a fact finding committee, and when we went to the area post the pogrom, post the violence, what we saw is that two houses of 3 houses in line, one is burnt, which is in the middle, which is a Muslim house, and the rest of the 2 are untouched. And the victims themselves have narrated how their neighbors told that this is a Muslim house, or this is a Muslim shop that you can burn and vandalize. So that's one. Even in Karnataka, the recent hijab issue, I've met the girls. I went to Karnataka and I met the girls, and they told me that, you know, that their friends, in fact, wore saffron shawls and clearly made a line that we stand on this side of the line, and we do not support your right to choose or your right to wear your religion, to practice your religion. It's not even about choosing to wear a thing. It's a religious practice that Muslim women do. And so that is very pronounced, and it has been like even before Modi, these kind of things happen. I mean, Gujarat happened in Gujarat, in Bhagalpur, in Bhiwandi, in Mumbai. That communal violence is an epidemic in India. So that's one. And Kashmir is a very different situation. So there is, of course, Kashmir can be a reason, but so the way we see it as Indian Muslims, what Kashmiri Muslims face is very different than what Indian Muslims face. And Kashmir is, of course, has been made into this massive Hindu sentiment of like, and the whole issue of Kashmiri Pandits is used to invoke this emotional outburst of how Hindus were treated, and all that kind of thing is there, of course, and it is used to further radicalize and create this sentiment of hate in the Hindu minds and hearts. But at the same time, even if that was not a problem, even if Kashmir was Kashmir and it had nothing to do with India, I believe there would have still been a lot of tension, a lot of violence against the Muslim community, because it not just roots from issues like Kashmir or but also from an inherent hate against Islam. And one of the biggest reason I believe is that Islam and Christianity are two religions that in an Indian context that do not have the whole system of caste.
Yeah.
And historically there has been, in fact, like, majority of the Christians and Indian and Muslims in India are in fact people from lower castes who converted to Islam at a mass level and to Christianity. And that is also one of the threats that I believe the Hindu supremacists see from Islam and Christianity, is that these two religions, they offer a sense of justice, because we do not have caste, we do not categorize
Very
humans.
well said. That's a beautiful statement.
And
Thank you.
that is one thing that the way I see it is that, and that is why also there's this huge propaganda of love jihad, which means that, like, Muslims are forcefully converting Hindus to Islam, and, like, in fact even Christians face a lot of harassment, a lot of threats, a lot of violence when it comes to cases of conversion, and, like, this whole idea, like, a very simple thing, like some of the basic things of Christianity, some of the very basic things of Islam are treated as something that is being used to forcefully convert a Hindu, and
so you're saying love jihad is a forceful conversion?
No, what
that?
they'll say is that these Muslim guys will have these relationship with these Hindu women, and in order, what you're saying is they paint this picture that Hinduism is so open, it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or Christian, but the Muslim, he can only marry a Muslim, so they have to forcefully convert these women to be Hindu, to be Muslims, and then they can marry them. So they're trying to change the landscape of India by taking our women.
So that's what's called love jihad?
It's it's that, and also, so there's this idea that there's this secret, I don't know how to say,
agenda.
So there's this there's this secret massive organization of the Muslims that train Muslim men to fall in love with Hindu women and to convert them to Islam. So that's what love jihad is.
Wow,
so
I didn't know about this.
Doing
That's the first
jihad.
time hearing about this.
How do you get in part of these meetings? I just want to know, just out of curiosity. Well,
Okay.
That is,
Yeah, but no, I mean, what the funny thing is, though, is that all of their idols in Bollywood are like pretty much Muslim-like names, right? So can they blame the Muslims? I mean, you have all these Khans and all these people, and I noticed they go extra. Like, if you look at any Bollywood movie, they always try, especially now, the modern stuff, it's not like the old stuff. The modern stuff on even Netflix, you always see it's always a Muslim woman who falls in love with a Muslim or a Hindu man, right? It's never the reverse. Even though reality is reverse, right, in a lot of cases, but they try to reverse it to make it look like, oh, it's a dominance. And actually, the reason why I asked you about the Kashmir Files is because I saw a clip of a Hindu man in the theater after the clip, after the movie he watched. If every Hindu guy marries a Muslim woman, we can stop the pregnancy rate and we can just neutralize the growth of the Muslim population. And that's what he was. He literally believed that. He thought they could curb the Muslim birth rate.
So this is really said, or this is something in drama? This is dramatized.
No, it's really happened after a movie. I mean, after they premiered. But this is all the picture they paint in the media too, that Muslim women are oppressed. They have to go to the Hindu guys to get married and have a fun time. Otherwise, the Muslim parents will force them to marry some guy they don't like, who's underachieving. He's not attractive. He's not. So this is the story they paint because they're trying to counter the narrative that there's a love jihad happening.
I think many of our listeners need to understand why these things are so important. This kind of rhetoric is so important because these are the messages that are broadcast to a people before events like genocide can happen or mass murder, where you're creating hysteria and your solution is a religious and nationalistic government, and every type of government like that, as we've seen in the past with Hitler and so on, they always created a boogeyman, someone that you had to be scared of in society, that would be the cause for all of our failures. They would be the reason why everyone is doing so poorly, and messages like these kind of build into the hysteria surrounding Islam and Muslims, that they are the reasons why they've been keeping India back from progressing to the other nations of the world. Never mind the fact that they didn't want to implement any kind of sewage system and anything that every other modern government has set up so far. They're not responsible for that. That's the Muslims' fault.
Of course.
Even though Hyderabad does, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. And it's about manufacturing, again, the consent of people before you do something, and that's what I think the fear is. And obviously right after this, we just want to move into the hijab ban portion, but just one of my final thoughts is that it's a scary thing to think about and discuss, and I can imagine how it is for you, sister, and the Muslims in India. But it's a lot of analysts are saying that it's about time all the boxes have been checked in order for a genocide to occur after these situations, right? Which is a pretty scary thing. It is, because what the sister was saying, it's very, very sad. What I sense from you is she's hoping that the Hindus actually recognize what they're doing is wrong. Yeah. Because there's no more hope.
Well, the thing is, one of our...
But do you guys understand that point?
Yeah.
That we have to depend on them to make sure that they realize what they're doing is wrong? Because no one else is aiding in any way?
But here's where it's different, okay? The reason why Hindus are different from Muslims is because the average Muslim strongly identifies with his or her Islam, right? The average Hindu isn't so tied up with, I'm a Hindu and I need to defend my image among the world, and they're not spending any time thinking about that. Yeah. The average Muslim, even if they're not practicing, they want to make sure that, hey, we're not what the media is portraying us to be. So they still have a strong sense of identifying themselves with Islam. Yeah. Even if they're completely not practicing. But Hindus, the average Hindus aren't. So they don't care much about, defending Hinduism from at least most of them, they don't care about defending Hinduism from the narrative that the BJP or the Hindu party is doing.
That's something I didn't think
about. So they don't have that click, and it's up. And maybe Sister Afreen, you can help us identify how we can help Hindus realize that, hey, you need to step up to the plate, because if you don't, there's going to be some kind of widespread slaughter or something scary that happens as a result of this. And in some ways it's already begun, but maybe you could help us with that. How do, not just Hindus, but also how do people in the West bring awareness to this?
I actually do not have a definite answer to how can we bring the Hindu majority to act up. because and I don't want to sound all hopeless or anything, but this is what the situation is on the ground, and majority of the Hindu community does not really care. In fact, even like the left liberal, the secularists who quote unquote are fighting the fascists, Modi government and the BJP, they are also inherently Islamophobic.
Yeah.
They are also inherently anti-Muslim. So, like, there's one common thing that binds them all together, the left, the right, the center, all of them together is Islamophobia. And it is always about, like, you compromise, as in the Muslim compromise. Even in this hijab ban issue, what was expected is that, like, why can't Muslim girls remove their hijab? Is education not important for them? And like right before an election, what happens is that Muslim communities again and again told that, see, you cannot vote for a Muslim representative or a Muslim for a party that has Muslim candidates, because you do not want the BJP to win. So that's something that we don't want. The Muslims don't want that to happen. So you have to vote for a secular party. So you have to vote for a left party. And we don't have any other option. We can't think about. So in the beginning also I said this, that, like, we've been brought to this very existential situation where the only thing that the Muslim community can think about is to survive. That is all that the Muslim community is thinking about. Even when, like, from what we expect from people of the world is to, like, to talk about what is happening in India, because we are not sure if the Hindu majority will act up, will take charge and say that, no, this cannot happen in our country, in our nation, in this land. We don't know if that's going to happen, but so all we have been left to do is to figure out a way to survive the genocide that is going to happen, that and to get the world to warn the world that it's going to happen, and please do something about it. I don't know what the solution is. All I know is that for the Muslim community, there is this. So I need to mention this, is that the Muslim community has come to this realization that we do not have a lot of things to compromise anymore. What more can we compromise on? I mean, we have been pushed into ghettos. We are discriminated in government jobs. We're discriminated in private jobs. We, like, you can name anything that can be done to discriminate against a community that has been done to the Muslims in India. And we're already, like, against the wall, and there's nothing that we can do except for push back. And that is exactly what we're doing now.
Yeah. One of the most
asserting.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, one of the most important things that people fail to realize is that there's a segment of Muslims who are aligned with, like, leftist solutions or leftist ideas, like, oh, hijab isn't part of Islam. And they use these people, so they create some kind of division. Even if it's a small division within Muslims, they use that as a justification for whatever they're saying. They say, hey, see, that's Ahmad so-and-so. He's part of the government. He's a judge. He's saying that it's not part of your hijab isn't part of Islam. So, brother, sister Afreen, can you?
Yeah, no. There's one thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is troubling to me. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard there are some, like, Molvis and alims that would praise Modi or sit with him. Is that true? Like, they actually sit with him and they actually like praise this guy politically?
Yeah, bro.
They do this?
Yeah.
There was a university that was involved in this controversy. But go ahead, sister.
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. So there is, of course, a minority of the Muslims in India who, and, like, I don't. So of course there are Muslims who have chosen to assimilate instead of assert. So that's how probably I'd put it. So they believe that the solution may be that, like, if we assimilate, if we, like, hide our Muslimness, or if we stop
Being so adamant, like being so
we,
vocal.
we abandon our
being
Islamic
Muslims.
No, visually being Muslim.
Yeah, identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be okay, and so there are, like, even in fact, like you said, that there are Muslims who have said that hijab is not important and Muslim girls can remove it, and I mean, but that's a very, I don't think that should that is something that has to be discussed, or some, because even these Muslims who quote unquote assimilate themselves, or who try to stay away from asserting their identity, or who try to stay away from politics, or try to just, like, agree to whatever is happening, so that they might be saved. But even these Muslims are harassed, are
Yeah.
threatened,
Of course.
and no one questions them if they're if they even, like, even atheists. Just because you have a Muslim name is enough for you to be lynched. That is the situation in India. It does not matter what your ideology is, what you're adhering to, if you're a practicing Muslim or not. Your name is enough for you to be incarcerated, for you to be lynched, for you to be discriminated against, and that is what it is.
Didn't one of these actors' children get like caught or something? Like he got harassed or something just for being a Muslim or something. I don't know. I heard something like that. One of these big time actors, like his son was driving around or something, and they caught him or they bothered him for being a Muslim. I don't know. Is that true?
I don't really. I did not.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I know.
Good
I know
job,
I know the case you're talking about. It was not just some big time actor. It was Shah Rukh Khan,
Oh,
whose son was arrested for using drugs.
oh, so never
And
mind.
I'm not sure what the real situation was
Yeah.
with
But
with
let's move
that.
to the hijab ban in
But,
specific, if you can.
Yeah, 1 second before. Our listeners are, many people, and it crossed my mind as well, are asking, can Muslims coordinate or organize and form some kind of or migrate towards some part of India where they can kind of have some strength in numbers, where they can become the majority? Is there a possibility of something like that? Because we know that they can't. They're pretty much landlocked. The only way is to Pakistan. There's no way Muslims could escape to Pakistan. But otherwise, what other option is there? I mean, is that even a possibility to move? And
I believe it can be, but the way the socio-economic condition of Muslims in India is so worse off, is that I don't believe that except the very rich Muslims, anyone can afford to migrate to a new place. The economic indicators of the Muslim, the average Muslim household is very low, and it's not possible because there's this huge numbers of Muslims in India. It's like more than 2 million, and there are efforts to bring up the Muslims in India to unite in some sense, but I don't think that a migration to a particular place is possible, because given the numbers and given that most of Muslims just economically survive. Most of the Muslims are in the like daily wages, or in the informal sector, and it's not possible. I'm not sure. I don't think I have the qualification to be able to give an answer like this.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I guess they're just putting ideas in the chat because they're trying to find how Western
Solution.
Muslims can help, right? And
Yeah.
and I really want to know because, you know, we know a lot of support for Narendra Modi's government comes from Indians outside of India, like Hindus outside of India, like especially from Chicago, Houston, New York,
Dubai.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different issue.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that right now because when they come over there, they're yesterday, they're like, oh, I had a bunch of work with me, right? And then they, you know, anyways, point being is that a lot of support for their government comes outside of India. I think what I'm seeing is the only way that Muslims can be propped up is that if support comes from outside of India.
It has to.
Like, so if they would like to do something like this, it would be a good idea if we could put money together and bust them all to Kashmir, bro. And do
Well,
one
it's
area.
not even like that though, man.
Well, it's much more than that.
Yeah, of
It's-
course.
Look, the first and foremost, the only thing the average person can do is bring out awareness in whatever vehicle, whether it's talking to people or the internet, even if it's just a comment section on the YouTube, but do as much as you can in bringing about this awareness, because that's how many things, like, for example, the Uyghur persecution in China. I mean, very few people knew about it.
Yeah.
Now pretty much everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but I'm
Well,
gonna be honest here though. The reason why they got big is because the American government sees odd at China, and there's a political entity here. If it was not for that difference,
we understand that.
Yeah, it
No,
wouldn't
we
have happened.
We understand that, but that's
Yeah.
what if we have some kind of political actor who makes it an issue, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if it's Turkey, maybe it's if it's Imran Khan, anyone, you know, in the Muslim world who starts making it. Who uses that kind of groundswell that you have to build? You can't. Even a politician can't talk about something that's truthful if there isn't
some benefit.
support.
Right?
There has to be a swell of support among the people to bring about some kind of a message to the Indian government, like, hey, stop doing this to Muslims. You know. So it's something to think about on that. And I know we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the hijab ban and how. And where that's going to go for. Right now, we knew about the ruling from the court that it said that the hijab is
on college campuses and stuff like that.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the issue started in one pre-university college in Udupi, where girls were asked to remove their hijabs outside of classrooms if they want to enter. And for more than a month, these girls, along with their parents, they talked with the college administration. So in Karnataka, for pre-university colleges, there's this college development committee, which takes care of uniforms and all that administrative kind of stuff. And so the parents of these girls and these girls themselves were in touch with the administration, asking them, pleading them to allow them to wear hijabs to their classrooms. And coincidentally, the chairman of this said college's CDC, the College Development Committee, was the local BJP MLA of that area. And they just denied. And so these girls went to court. And what happened was that there was a mobilization within the ABVP, which is the student wing of ABVP, Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, which is the student wing of the RSS, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, and they started demanding colleges to stop hijab-wearing girls from entering to the colleges. And they themselves started wearing saffron shawls to show that if they will wear hijab, we will wear this. And there was harassment of Muslim women. There was a very viral video of a young Muslim girl who is a teenager entering her college when she's heckled by more than 40-50 odd Hindu students wearing saffron shawls and shouting Jai Shri Ram. And so this started happening more and more. Many colleges followed suit. Some were influenced by Hindutva organizations to ban hijab in the colleges, and some just and soon after there was a government order that came out that hijab that essentially meant that, like, colleges that have a uniform, people have to follow the uniform, and you cannot violate a uniform. And so the colleges started making hijab, keeping hijab out of the uniform. And I must point out, these girls had been wearing hijab to their colleges. And then what happened? So the girls had gone to the court, and there was an interim order which said that no one will wear hijab or any religious clothes until we reached to a verdict. And then the verdict came, which not just said that you cannot wear any religious clothes to schools, which also said that hijab is not an essential religious practice in Islam, which is a big problem, which is very problematic. And so the situation right now is that one, that these girls, the final exams are coming, and this was an arbitrarily hijab was stopped. Girls were stopped from wearing hijab in their colleges. And two, that the court has not just said that you can't wear hijab or a religious clothing. They have said that hijab is not an essential religious practice, which is going to be a legal precedence that is being set. And three, one more thing that I need to point out is that the hijab ban is there is no such ban per se. What has been told is that the college development committees and the administration will decide on the uniform, and whatever the administration decides the uniform to be, no one can violate that. And the power to make these decisions has been given to local MLAs. And I'm not so the biggest problem is that legislators and Karnataka is a state which is ruled by the BJP. So legislators and politicians, if they should be given the power to choose uniform for a diverse population, and given the fact that the BJP is already biased and bigoted against the Muslim community, two, that the verdict is problematic at a lot of levels, and the biggest problems of everything is that the court cannot be interpreting faith. The court cannot say if a practice is essential or not essential to a particular faith, to a particular religion. And so right now these girls are missing their exams, their lab practicals, and they're basically been excluded from the academic spaces. And we do not have the exact numbers of how many Muslim girls have been affected by this, but the way we see it, this is leading to a mass exclusion of Muslim girls from education.
And I heard this doesn't just go back to this year. It's been going back to like 2018, 2019, right? This is not a new thing. It just got media attention now because that sister had, shouted back at them in the stage of protest, but they've been asking Muslim women to remove hijab since 2018, right? If I'm correct?
Yeah.
Right.
So the coastal district of Karnataka, Udupi, and other areas. In fact, it's not just limited to Karnataka. I mean, there have been many instances of Muslim girls being asked to remove their hijab in other parts of the country as well. I clearly remember in, I think, 2019, there was this girl who was asked to remove her hijab when she was going to give the national eligibility test, which is an eligibility test for becoming an assistant professor. And so there have been several incidents where Muslim girls have been asked to remove their hijab, where they've been asked to step away. They've been denied job opportunities. There was a Muslim woman, her name is Ghazala Ahmed. She was selected for the job of a TV presenter, but then she was asked to step down. She was denied the job because she was a hijabi Muslim woman. And so there are ample of examples, and it did not start, of course, it did not start in Udupi, in Karnataka, or in that particular college. It has been happening. And I also want to say is that uh, so this hijab issue, or the ban and the exclusion of Muslims and denying right to religious practice to Muslims is in line with a bigger agenda of the uh, Hindu extremist, Hindu supremacist, which is of a uniform civil code, which means that everyone, irrespective of what their religion is, will have to follow a uniform civil code. All matters of civil, so marriages, divorces, land rights, everything. Uh, sorry. Everything will be in a uniform way, and the way India has always been is that the the majoritarian culture, the majoritarian practices are the dominant practices, which are accepted as a norm. I mean, I studied in a Christian missionary school, and even we had yogas, which is related to the Hindu religion. We had lighting of diyas before a program started. These are Hindu practices, which are also a part of. So this is a dominant culture, which is that of, which is the Indian culture is the Hindu culture.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I get that, and I think what people need to realize is the irony is that all of a sudden every single Hindutva member has become an expert on what hijab is, like on what Islamic tenets are. Like before, they had no idea. Before, these are the same people that were saying that, oh, look at the Muslims, they oppress women, they have to wear this, it's just a piece of cloth, just a piece of cloth. And now they're the ones who are trying to become and tell people what is the religion. Because before, they used to use this argument to attack Islam and say, well, look, you have to oppress women, right? This is what you have to do. Right, you have to, this is Islam. Right, that's what they would say. Now they're coming out and saying, "Well, they become muftis all of a sudden, saying this is not Islam. There's nothing with hijab in Islam."
And in turn, still oppressing.
Yeah, I mean, no, but what I'm trying to say is, you see the hypocrisy, right?
Completely.
Before they were arguing that it is, they were criticizing it for being an Islamic idea, and now they're coming out saying actually it has nothing to do with Islam anymore. It's just something cultural, right? This is what they're trying to say, and I think that's what she's getting at, that they're now trying to define what is and what isn't a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian or whatever, and I think that's the problem that we're facing. And I don't know. I mean, we have a lot of questions. I don't know if we're going to get to any of them. Sim in the text. I don't know.
In the chat.
If you have time. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess a lot of people just have very curious questions. Like, I saw one earlier, like, somebody was asking what is the relationship between the Muslims and Sikhs in India, because they see that here in America they're a little bit different, and some of the Sikhs here in Canada and America have been talking about some of the oppressive tactics the Modi regime has done to them, and I think there was some farmer thing. So what's that relationship over there between the Sikhs and the Muslims in India?
I believe that there is a solidarity between the Sikhs and Muslims in India as well, and the Sikh community is also a minority, and it also faces a lot of harassment, a lot of incrimination, a lot of violence. A lot of Sikhs are discriminated just because they're Sikhs. And there is a solidarity between the Muslims and the Sikhs. So when the Anti-CAA movement, the controversial citizenship law was passed, and the Anti-CAA movement saw that the Sikhs had come to Delhi to the protest site of Shaheen Bagh and participated. And in the farm, when the farm laws were brought in, and there was massive protest by the Sikh community, Muslims participated, and there is a give and take kind of relationship, a healthy solidarity, a hopeful solidarity, I should say, between the Sikh and the Muslim community. And in fact, I should point out that there have been attempts by members of Hindutva organizations to sort of create enmity between Muslims and Sikhs. So there was an issue, there was a creation of a website which auctioned Muslim women online.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And it was created by Hindu men. And so they used Gurmukhi, which is a language that is used by the Sikhs in Punjab. and they made fake Twitter handles with Sikh names to
Wow.
sort of give an idea to the Muslim community that maybe Sikhs
Evil
are
people,
doing this
bro.
to Muslim women, and that's one example of
Evil people, bro.
them trying to. There is, of course, a unity of the oppressed,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
with Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Dalits, that is happening, and I believe the Sikh community has been one of the only communities in India that are non-Muslim and have actively spoken for the Muslim community.
You know, there's two questions I have here, and I'll just throw them both at you. You can answer them at in order. But the first one is: are there any affluent Muslims, Indian Muslims, in India that are speaking out and trying to bring awareness or at least some reconciliation between the government and Muslims? And the second question is, actually, it's more of a comment and a question. People are asking, well, why don't Indian Muslims rally behind someone like Asaduddin Owaisi, right? Asaduddin Owaisi, or people like this in Hyderabad, right? And so, I mean, I'm sure that you can answer both of those, but I think the question is more about why don't they rally behind someone like that's been very outspoken.
I just want to confirm. You said that is there an actor or
No, any
I'm
affluent,
sorry, the first question.
any affluent Muslims, like meaning major, whether actor, CEO, wealthy.
Or
Right.
sports
Yeah.
player,
All right,
cricket
all right.
players, you know.
Yeah.
So I believe there are people who have been people in the Muslim community who have been actively trying to advocate the situation of Muslims. The problem is not with us trying to advocate and talk about and sit on a table and maybe negotiate. In fact, the problem is with the government that is not willing to listen.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is with a government that, in fact, supports this genocide, that, in fact, supports this violence. That's one. The second is that there is so political leaders like Asaduddin Owaisi are people who are regarded as very important within the Muslim community in India. We understand, we do realize the importance of their presence, the importance of them speaking for us in the parliament, and there is support for them. And that's one part of the question, that's one part of what is happening. The other part is also of Muslims realizing themselves, common Muslims realizing themselves that they also have to be as assertive, they also have to be as vocal about what is happening with Muslims in India, and that is starting to happen. I mean, there has been a generation of Muslims that was too afraid, maybe, that was too in line with the dominant expectation of what is expected of us being Muslims. So what was that, like, you become a model minority, you keep your head down, you do what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you do nothing else, you do not talk about what is happening with you, you do not say anything, and you just be.
Yeah.
It is being challenged, and it is leaders like Asaduddin Owaisi who have been who are giving a hope to the Muslim community that we should also be doing that, and that is happening in India. There's especially in the youth. I mean, the way I see it, the way not just me. I mean, the way it's happening. The youths are accepting Asaduddin Owaisi. The older generation, not so much, because I don't know why, but they're not so much open to
So I have
accepting. Yeah.
I have a question about that. So I've always wondered about this. I feel like in some of the older generation, they try to paint this picture that Hindus and Muslims, they just were brothers of different faith. They all one same people, and I'll tell you, like my family, moved out of Hyderabad and went to Pakistan. Okay, and at that time, I guess my grandfather was saying that he didn't trust them. Like, and some of them came to him directly and said, "Hey, we can't help you if something happens here. We can't help you at all. Like, what's gonna happen?" And so he's like, "Well, I'm gonna pack up then. Right? I'm gonna leave." But I think the idea is that some actually believe that there's some type of brotherhood or neighborly bond that will never get broken.
That's a human thing. That's natural. That can happen.
No. But I'm saying when you realize there's violence, it's stupid to think that, right? Yeah. I mean, when there's a violence going on, you have to be an idiot, a moron to think that, right? But what I'm saying here is that I feel like there's this group and segment, which may be the liberals, that, like you said, they want to assimilate and just kind of be low key, and they love Bollywood and they love the parties and they love, whatever it is, the socialites. Right, and they are, and I'm finding this to be, and I don't know if it's how often this is, but I maybe because I've been paying attention to it now, but I've seen a lot of intermarrying between Muslims and Hindus, and I think that, to me, that's part of the problem. Like, meaning that, hey, you know what? That's how they try to get you to shed your Muslim identity by saying, hey. And traditionally that was popular in Bollywood, right? Where we already knew the Bollywood actors would marry Hindus, and that just because they all were part of a similar ideology, right? But I think at some point in my parents' generation and the ones that stayed in India, they became like that to fit in, and slowly it just became normal. And I think the new generation now, because of the persecution, has to embrace this Muslim identity. And I think that's why people like Asaduddin Owaisi are more appealing, because hey, being the complacent guy isn't saving us, right? So, I mean, do you see that? I mean, well, I guess my main question here, do you see with all this pressure and being backed up against the wall, and do you see that maybe some of these young youth will retaliate? I mean, I don't see any other way. I mean, if people outside can't help and they feel like their back is against the wall, I don't see any other way but to defend yourself in violence. I mean, I just don't see it coming out to anything other than that. So do you see it going that way? I mean, is it heading that way if the Indian government doesn't do something about this?
So to answer the question, I believe that the older generations have been, the way I see their response to assertion, their response to leaders like Asaduddin Owaisi, and the older generation that believes in quote unquote the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb and the Hindu Muslim unity, and so it's mostly, I believe that it's mostly to do with the fact that there has been an active effort on part of the Indian state to chop off Muslim politics, to completely erase Muslim politics. Like, even if there's a Muslim leader, there is no Muslim leader. What I want to say is that a Hindu leader, a Hindu politician is an Indian politician, is an Indian leader, but a Muslim politician is a Muslim. They're not an Indian politician. They're not an Indian leader. They're a Muslim
Pakistani
leader. So that's one. So there has been efforts on part of the state to sort of keep in check how Muslims respond, and how, and like I said earlier also, so this is there's a wiring that has been done that has secularized the Muslim mind in India, that has basically sort of pacified, sort of made second-class citizens of Muslims, and made Muslims to accept that second-class citizenship, because they feel that there's no way out of this. And that, like, and I've heard many people say that, like, they're 80%, we can't fight them. It's not possible. So we better just, like, keep in tow with what is being expected of us. We can't fight that number. That is one thing that has happened. And it is also like, so there's this effort on part of liberals in India, which is of like, over romanticizing the composite culture of like, of like, eating biryanis and having sevaiyan in Eid, and like, participating in mushairas, which is not an Islamic act in any way, but still. So this romanticization is also in a way fed to the Muslim community. So what happens is that uh, when Hindus actively attack Muslims, when mobs shout Jai Shri Ram and attack Muslims, they're not Hindus. They're fringe elements that are doing this. But it is happening at a that it is happening at a mass level, and it is happening everywhere. But still, these are fringe. That's not the dominant thing. But when there's one Hindu that does something good, that does something maybe helping a Muslim man, and everyone goes in like, on Twitter with like, goggy eyes and like, heart eyes and everything. See, this is what we're talking about, Hindu Muslim brotherhood. This is what my India looks like. This is the idea of India that I believe in. And that is what is like, applauded so much so that like, this is the only thing that Muslims in India have been, many Muslims in India, I cannot speak for everyone, many Muslims in India have been clutching too hard on that, like, this is what we have to protect. This is the idea of India that needs to be saved, really, because sad. There are Hindus who stand with us, and who, which is something which is, so cases of violence are the dominant, prevalent culture, and incidents of help coming from Hindus or incidents of Hindu-Muslim unity are isolated cases where Hindus are not helping a Muslim man during a pogrom because he's a Hindu, but he's doing it because he probably does not stand for violence, or he does not want. So the part where the Hindu identity is being used is not shown as a Hindu problem, but the part where the Hindu identity is not at the front is always, see, Hindus are not all Hindus are bad, and like, that whole not all men, not all whites, not all Hindus. That is the kind of thing that has been taught, that has been ingrained in us. That it's not all Hindus; it's just some Hindus who vote someone into power.
Yeah, and, I definitely get that. Yeah, and I think also another thing to point out: the liberals in India who are painting this picture, a lot of it is just talk. Like, there's no action. Like, they'll say, "Oh, we're one India, we're one people, we love this." But when people actually do things, when there's, like, for example, a lot of these liberals are actors. They're politicians. I mean, they're in affluent people. When these actions happen in India, they don't say anything. They're quiet, and their silence is approval. I'll give an example. Like, did any Bollywood actor, any liberal, come out against that movie Kashmir Files? Very few did. You won't even know of anyone that did, right? I mean, I'm sure you won't find anybody. And that kind of propaganda is what they're silent on. Is what she's speaking about. Like, they are silent on those issues. And what
was Kashmir Files about?
It's about basically saying they basically took the pundits that were murdered or killed in Kashmir and made it like the base of why the Muslims need to be like, this is what's going to happen in India if you don't check the Muslims.
Oh, so there was some kind of slaughter of Hindus?
I mean, they alleged there was some communal violence and the pundits got killed at some point. I don't know full details. Like communal violence happens, but they just wanted to paint it that this is the reason why we're doing what we're doing. Because if we don't check the Muslims, they're going to grow out of population and they're going to do what they did in Kashmir all over India.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is that, but if people were truly liberal, they would come out and say, "Hey, boycott this movie. This is propaganda to the highest degree." What happened in Gujarat? Like, what happened in Babri Masjid, right? Talk about those things, right? And but what she's saying is that these liberals right now, they don't take a stand. They just paint this picture, but there's no stand being taken.
Yeah.
So if you're not taking a stand, it's just Bollywood to them.
Yeah.
Oh, and to be honest, they always reference this Mughal Azam culture, like where Din Allahi, where everyone's alone, and it's all from the Mughals anyways. It's not even from Hindu culture, right? So this is the problem, right? Where there's no action from the liberals. So this idea that liberals are somehow better and Muslims should be aligned with them and just kind of embrace this liberal lifestyle and you'll just get by and have this wonderful utopian India is just not true.
Yeah.
It's not getting in. There's no momentum. There's no action.
That is also not reflective of
the majority.
I mean, even if you are, even as Muslims, if we align with the liberal idea, it does not mean that we are safe from the violence that is happening.
Because of your name.
Many liberal Muslims are incarcerated, are in jail, just for dissenting, just for making a speech, for protesting. And what is also important to understand here is that the way liberals paint this picture of if only Muslims assimilate, or if Muslims keep their Muslim identity inside their homes and just be Indians outside, it's going to be all good, and it's going back, and it's going to be better for Muslims. That is in itself a very huge, a big propaganda, because and they always romanticize pre 2014 years, saying that we need sort of romanticizing that before Modi everything was fine, and before Modi before BJP everything was all flowery and sunshines for Muslims in India, which it was not, which is not reflective of the actual history of what has happened. I mean, most of the communal riots, most of the communal violence, the pogroms against Muslims, mass murders of Muslims, mass massacres of Muslims has happened before Modi. So if so they basically want Muslims to compromise, that we'll not kill you out, that we won't outrightly say that we're going to kill you, but we are going to do it anyway. So you want to they want Muslims to believe that we want to go back to that time when the person who was committing violence against us did that behind our backs. And so Arundhati Roy, in one of her essays, has written that the BJP only does in day what the Congress did at night. So it's basically just about this filter, there's this filter of everything is fine, which was there before Modi, and now that filter is just that screen has just fallen off, and you're seeing the real gruesome violence that is happening. But it was already happening. It was always happening. So to believe that things will be fine if we just adhere to liberalism, or if we just keep our Muslimness inside our house and everything is going to be fine, that's not really reflective of Indian history itself.
It'd be too naive to believe that.
The ayah in the Quran, Surah Imran, rank hatred has already appeared from their mouth, but what they conceal in their heart is far worse.
And also
that's what just everything she's saying is just reminding me of that person.
And also they say they appear to be unified, but their hearts are divided. And this is even within their own Hindus, like liberals, conservatives, all these different types. But there's one question I have that's probably a very important question that a lot of people keep asking, is that how do they support what you're doing outside of it? Like from outside of India, how do Muslims support anything that you're doing, or efforts, or to help the Indian Muslims? Is there any way that they can, and if there's a place to donate or some causes to be aware of, or what's the best way to support what you're doing?
I believe that there are Indian Muslim diaspora organizations that are working on advocacy, and people may reach out to them. But if there are no organizations from where you are, I believe that what can be done is that is to raise awareness in the sense that ask your governments to hold the Indian government accountable, ask your media to report on what is happening in India, I mean, it takes something extremely violent, extremely gruesome, extremely vile for the world to take note of something that is happening in India. And these vile, disgusting incidents happen every day in India. And the the Genocide Watch has said that India is on the 8th stage of genocide, and the next stage is mass murders, is genocide itself, and then there will be denial. And every time a genocide happens, I mean, in Rwanda, in uh, in Germany, the world, like, every time it says that not again, not again. And this time around, we're telling you that this is a very serious situation in India with the Indian Muslims. I'm not exaggerating a single word. I'm not saying anything that has not happened on ground in reality. I'm not exaggerating even a bit of what is happening in India. And don't make this another not again situation for us.
Yeah.
Actively talk about what is happening in India. Make the Indian government know that the world is actually watching, and that they can't get away with it. It's not that, like, they're doing something in India and no one knows about it.
Yeah, one thing I would just as a students' rights advocate, I would probably focus on the Indian government's reliance on so many partners within the West, with technology companies and stuff, because ultimately businesses don't invest in companies that have upheaval, who have social unrest, and when you can kind of tap into those fears within foreign investments, then that can change things quickly, and companies will start rethinking about whether they should open up a new campus, whether it's Microsoft or Apple or anyone. They don't want to deal with. They want steady, fluctuating. They don't want any
economies,
kind of,
unrest in economies.
They want people who are not going to interfere with business. They don't want to deal with protests and violence and riots and things like that. So when you can kind of tap into those fears, at least as activists, you can kind of bring some real change to them, because that's what they're investing in.
Yeah.
So think about that too, everyone who's listening, how you can bring about some kind of awareness within foreign investment, because that's ultimately when people. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out there was this effort by Muslim Personal Affairs Committee in the UK, where they made companies not give advertisements to media houses that have spot that are basically pro-Hindutva.
Yeah.
So the Indian media is very biased, and most of it's Indian media is just turned into a Radio Rwanda. So they wrote to companies and asked them to take away their ads from say, for example, the Republic channel, which is one of the biggest mouthpiece of the BJP government and the Hindutva ideology. And so that is something that can be thought of. So, don't fund hate. Don't fund organizations. Don't fund media channels, newspapers that proactively call for hate. And there are groups that are doing it. So that is something that can be thought of.
Yeah, and also write to your congressman and your senators. Let them know about these things. These are things that are whether no matter what outlet you take, choose something that fits within within this narrative that what we're trying to bring awareness around it, because everyone has their own strategy that they feel very close to. Whether you want to talk to corporate investment and foreign investors into India, or politicians who are doing business with India, whether they're senators and congressmen in America or the UK, do something, and hopefully that can build some kind of
Momentum. Yeah,
Exactly.
just a real quick thing, just a quick plug here. I actually did follow you on Twitter, and I noticed on your Twitter feed you had some great content for awareness. So if people want to follow you, it's Afreen Fatima 136. But I watched that documentary, In the Eye of the Storm. So anybody that really wants to get a first-hand account of the sisters in Karnataka and see what they went through, a sister from the UK actually produced this film and kind of interviews these.
Is that
girls.
on YouTube?
I don't know if it's on YouTube, but yeah, it's on YouTube. It is. It's called Eye of the Storm, filmed by Shaheen Abdullah. It's also I got it actually from your Twitter feed, so I watched that too. So you get a first-hand account of what they're feeling and just their perspective of entirely how this unfolded. So it'll give a good, interesting perspective from their eyes.
Yeah, stay abreast of all this stuff happening. Follow Sister Afreen at Afreen Fatima on Twitter, right? And
Afreen Fatima 136, right? Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for your time, Sister Afreen.
Thank you very much. Jazakallah.
Oh, yes.
Assalamu
alaikum. For our listeners, for questions, comments, and concerns, you can message us at info@themadmamluks.com, and make sure you click on like and subscribe and throw a comment in the comment section below with your thoughts related to this episode, and let us know if we can assist you in anything related to the future Ramadan coming up in a week or so. We're going to have a show related to that next Wednesday, and hopefully we can address some of your concerns or questions while you for Ramadan. Sorry. That's all for us for this afternoon. We'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.